Good morning, everybody. Aaron from Beansprout here. It's a Sunday morning and everyone else is asleep, so I'm talking to you for a little bit. A little update on my arthritis and hand situation. I finally got good imaging and a real hand surgeon who specializes in this. And the lowest joint in my thumbs on both sides, I think it's called a CMC joint, there's almost no joint space left and it's full of bone spurs. And the actual joint sits wrong in the actual thumb sits wrong in that joint, just from years of abuse, I guess. So I finally got some better info about like what's going on to see that, and it makes me feel better because I'm like, I know I'm not crazy now. That like the amount of pain I'm feeling is not just like an ache, or not just like I should eat turmeric, or not just like I should, I don't know. It just felt like, okay, this is real. To like see the bone spurs on that joint shows me I'm not insane, which is good. So I'm 44. She said my hands look like I'm a boat builder in their 80s. So why is it this bad? Well, I have hemophilia. I was born with it. And it means my joints have been internally bleeding just kind of my whole life. And of course we take medicine for that. And of course I've kept it under control enough to have a life and career using my hands. But that small internal bleeding just eats away at your joints over time. So that's why, like a few years ago, I had a couple of ankle surgeries. That was comparatively easy, but the thumb, we need to be able to keep moving it, especially because it's my job. So anyway, today I'm just gonna, we have future plans for those joints. It's not totally set, so we don't need to mention it here today, but what I'm gonna talk about today is tool handles and what works for me and what is no longer working for me. Mainly, all day long I'm grabbing things, whether that's an instrument neck or a piece of work that I'm sawing, or a tool I hold in my hands, or files or whatever. And I figured out that the shape and size of the thing I'm grabbing is definitely affecting the wear and tear on my hands. So it's like this closing motion, which isn't a hard motion, or like opening a jar. Those things are really painful for me. So what I grab matters. So this kind of revolution started for me several years ago when I started to notice that the little handles on the files we get from Stu Mac, I mean, sometimes they're not that special of a file, but they come with there's little handles. Sometimes it's just a piece of rubber around here. So you're just grabbing the bare tool. And that didn't used to bug me, but then it got to be kind of annoying. So I started to make like little tiny wooden handles that were a little bigger, like octagon tool handles. And that was better. But then over time, it's like, no, I need to hold bigger handles. I mean, some of the Stu Mac handles, like this one's supposed to be a big file, and even this handle is, for me, is just garbage to hold after a while. Like, just picking up and just doing this hurts me. So I've got old tools with old handles, so I started going through things, and I found these Diston, that's like a saw manufacturer, these Diston saw handles. And I put one on my crowning file that I use for fret crowning all the time. And this has been a major improvement. These Diston handles, I can find them on eBay, but they're like 15 bucks each, but I might still grab a bag of them. I did buy a pile of these handles, which they are kind of nice, but they're just not very elegant. And they're the kind that are supposed to have like a screw threads inside. So it's not that great. But anyway, this is my fret dressing file. So these two are like my main files that I have to use all day on frets. And I'm feeling better. And then for the fret corner dressing file, I just made a big octagon, kind of a Sloyd style handle, and these feel better already. So I'm gonna continue that path of just, I'm not gonna do it on every single tool, but the ones I use a lot, especially this crowning file, was a really good idea to get in this Diston handle. So chisels are the other thing I use all day. And typically what I use are one of these two things. These are like the fancy Veritas chisels that I started buying years ago. They're really expensive. And then like the little Swedish Berg chisels that I like in this room. These are the two chisel sets I usually use. The handles, I like the handles because they're small and delicate. And maybe here in this room where I'm doing the fine work, that's okay. But I was at Ben's shop, and Ben had a Ward chisel, and a Ward is like a Sheffield steel chisel. And it was a big, firmer chisel like this. And I held it in my hand, and Ben was like, oh yeah, I use this chisel for 90% of what I do now. He just like really liked how it felt. And so I went back and I was like, I'm gonna find me a Ward chisel like that on eBay. And I didn't find a Ward, but I found a Marples, which is also Sheffield steel. So it was like an 1.25 inch firmer chisel. And it's got a handle on it. Look at this thing. British made steel. And these are the old ones when it still has like a shamrock stamped on it. And so in the main woodworking shop, or on that side, I've been using this chisel for almost everything. It's a firmer chisel, so it's not beveled on the sides. And it takes a great edge, and it's just a beautiful tool. And I love that all these old British tools, it happens in America too, but a lot of these British tools have the gentleman's name stamped in it who used it. So then I started looking around for sets of chisels, old chisels on eBay and whatever, started buying stuff up. And, you know, sometimes you'll see like a pile that comes from somebody's shed and you only want one chisel in it, but you buy the whole pile because it's cheaper that way, and then you sell the other ones off. So I've been messing around with that. The only bad thing is the shipping has to come from overseas, unfortunately. But like, and this is like an example of a little 5/8 inch smaller handle, but it's got the bevel edge chisel. And this is taken over as my main bevel edge chisel. So I'm gonna try to pick up a couple more bevel ones like this, and I'm pretty well on my way to a pile of firmer chisels like this that are the right size and shape. And I just love the size of these. So I don't have that many Stanley chisels left. I still have these Veritas ones. I think I'm gonna keep those for now because they're like, these were like lifetime investment chisels that maybe someday I'll wanna use these again. But these are comparatively very cheap. Basically, I can get like 5 good firmer chisels of the era I want for one Veritas chisel. And that the thrifty side of me appreciates that. So yeah, using these larger handles is really helping. The other main thing that's really aggravating is any activity that sends force and shock up my hand. So splitting wood with an axe or a hatchet, using the hatchet, hammering with a hammer, using a mallet, what else? Just all those, anything that sends force. So I've been working on just avoiding that in my life, which has been good. And I'm just kind of redoing everything. So yeah, I'm looking to hopefully have a relatively minor procedure done on one hand this summer. I'm not ready to rebuild the whole joint yet. I'm gonna put that off. As a hemophiliac, my joints at 44 usually look like much older people's joints. And that, so that's fine, except a thing that you would do in your 70s to get you 5 more years out of a joint isn't gonna work for me, because I don't need 5 more years out of the joint. I need 30, you know. And unfortunately, I have really cool doctors from the Hemophilia Center who are really into the joints and the wear and tear and keeping us active. But unfortunately, I'm 44, which means I was born in 79, which means I lived through the AIDS crisis. And a lot of the young men who were my age, or little boys who were my age, they didn't live through the AIDS crisis. So there's not a lot of people older than me with hemophilia. I had, there was like 6 or 7 years, maybe 6 years, before they could test for the virus in our medicine. So, you know, when I took my medicine, I had the risk of contracting HIV or hepatitis or things like that. So I'm already a miracle. I see it that way. And anyway, the science of like what an active hemophiliac's joints are supposed to be like at 65, there's not a lot of good science about that, because we didn't used to live this long and they didn't used to study us carefully. And you would just be, if you were still alive at that time, you would just be like in a wheelchair or just like didn't use your body. And that's not a thing that I care to do if I can help it. Anyway, that's the chisel that started it all. I'm gonna try to find, I'm just like, now I'm obsessed with these British tools, these Marples Sheffield steel tools, because usually I just use like Stanley tools. And I'm gonna try to get some more of these distant file handles if I can afford them. Okay, folks, thank you, appreciate you, have a good one.